Good afternoon, everybody. A warm welcome from myself and David Jackson next to me. We will try to inspire you for the next 40 minutes around ways of working. We heard a lot about technology this morning. It's all nice and fine. It does a job, but what actually should it support? And it's not a generic subject like you would expect in a day like that talks about Skype for Business. Because it's not so much about Skype for Business or technology. It's more about you. You as an individual, how are you working in your organization? And that has nothing to do with technology, to be honest. Yes, it helps you, but it doesn't and is not the Holy Grail, as we have put it on this slide. So, is there anybody who knows something from activity-based working as a terminology? I see one in the back of the room, two, three only. Oh, damn it. Okay, well, maybe I need your support this afternoon. My name is Gijs Nooteboom. I'm working with Veldhoen & Company, and I don't have to ask you what nationality I am, because after 3 words people know that I'm Dutch, so that's no secret. We are the company that 25 years ago started to invent and think about activity-based working as a philosophy. And if that philosophy hadn't been transferred by Macquarie Bank, by Peter Ma, the CEO of Macquarie Bank in 2008 to Australia, I would be very doubtful to what extent this philosophy, this acronym of ABW, would be known in Australia. Because if Macquarie Bank hadn't embraced it, and if we haven't helped them, I don't know. In the meantime, everybody talks about it. And this is a strange thing for us. Because the way everybody talks about it is not the way we have thought about it in 1992. It has become a thing. It has become a hype, it has become a fad, it has become everything. But not what it's meant to do. And what it's meant to do is to be a philosophy. And hopefully after 2 or 3 slides you will be clear that it is a philosophy and not like, hey, fantastic, I've been at Macquarie, that's what I want too. You are not Macquarie. They are Macquarie. And yes, it is simple from what you see. And what you see is furniture, and you see people working in that space. What you don't see is what's behind it. What sits behind the way these people work? Because as soon as they start thinking about it, they say, oh man, how do I keep my team connected? How do I manage my workload? How do I know where my people are? Oh no, this is not going to work for us. So it starts with the senior leadership, the CEO and his colleagues, thinking about what is it actually that the ways of working we embrace should support, based on our strategy, the values, and the purpose we are here for on Earth. There are not many companies able and mature enough to think about it in that way. Because we are running as a reactive habit, as a reactive rabbit, by the way, in reactive habits, in this world. Running for the bottom line, reworking everything we did. Maybe twice, maybe 3, maybe 4 times. How conscious are you going to work on a Monday morning? How conscious are you? How conscious do you make the choice to get out of your bed, to brush your teeth, think about, do I take the bus, do I stay home, do I go to the cafe, or whatever I actually do? It's the habit of work. 9 o'clock we show up and we start working. Even not very conscious about what I'm actually working towards, because I'm reactive. Stuff is coming towards me and I deal with it. Activity-based working as a philosophy should and has the ability to make you far more conscious about what is it actually that I want to contribute to this organization? Why am I in this organization? What is it that I need to do this, or to do my work from an information point of view, from a colleague point of view? What do I actually need from a workplace point of view and from a technology point of view? And when do I want to do that? This building of consciousness asks an enormous demand of the senior leadership to trust their people that they're able to do so. And with all excuses for boardrooms, they say that you are their most important asset, But if you listen in the boardroom to the conversations and the people who are representing you, either they are not there, let alone that the conversation is held about you and how to support you to bring the best on the table. And this is the conversation I have at the boardroom. Are you really willing to spend time to think about the way you work, from the fact that you can work anytime, anywhere, towards your organization, how can you benefit from it, and how can it support you? So, the last point I want to say to it is, yes, it is the most modern organizational development tool, personal development tool too. Because the only reason why we still work so conservative as we did in the 60s, 70s and 80s is because of the anxiety and the fear to lose control, to maybe not trust my people as I say I trust them when I hire them. Because nobody hires people they don't trust. But as soon as they are in, all the control reins start to be pulled on you. And by the way, I have a desk for you, and there's a meeting room. That meeting room is mostly occupied or technology doesn't work. But that's the space you are going to work in. How odd is that? How odd is it that most of our time we spend in an office of our life, which is boring and not working well enough? So, if I think about activity-based working, and you think about Macquarie or CBA or wherever you have it, you see a workplace, but it's not about the workplace. It's about the way you work. And that's a very complicated subject. There's only there's only one thing that complicates it, and that's us ourselves. It's the habits and the patterns we hardly see ourselves that don't serve first and foremost ourselves, but also not the organization. And leadership are the ones I would expect to reflect on that. And to say, how do we actually serve our people to get the best out of them? And if you talk about activity-based working, do you think you do it already? There were 3 people who said they did it, but I think all of you do it. It's only called activity-based living. It's not difficult. You all live in a house that's designed for the activities you do in the house. Is there anybody who takes a bath in the kitchen? We don't do that. We have built a kitchen for that. Yeah? Sorry, a bathroom. I've told it so many times, this story. Start to get confusing myself. And at the same time, all these houses are different. They look maybe the same from the outside, but when you go inside, people have different interests, have different purposes for the house, different spheres. So think about the analogy, yes, I am actually building a place where I can do what I want to do. The activity I do is supported by a certain space. It's the same in your work life. Yes, we want to co-create. I need a space to co-create. Yes, I want to do very focused work. I need to have a focused place. The guy who was here before, Nick, talked about all those different spaces. Think about it. It's not like this. You have to be thoughtful. What is it that I want to drive with my business to make the outcomes happen? What kind of activities do I want my people to do to get the best out of it? That's maybe far more talking about collaboration. I'll come soon to that one. Instead of that individual process work, because that is what I can do anywhere, anytime. When the boardroom says to me, Gijs, we want to collaborate, the first thing I say, well, we don't put any desk in there. Panic. Well, sorry, no panic. 60% you saw this morning by Stephen is unoccupied anyhow, or occupied by a jacket. Very expensive place to put a jacket on the chair. And the most interesting thing is not the fact that 60% is not occupied, and only 40% is, but what are my people doing in that 60%, and how are they accommodated for that part of the job? How did we take care of them? I would say hardly. So we got this one, huh? This is easy, yeah? Okay, collaboration. There are many definitions of collaboration, so I thought I'd pick one. Don't take this one too literally. But if you see it figuratively, there's a lot of power in this sentence. And I'm Dutch, and you know how the Dutch worked with the Germans, yeah, in the Second World War. This spoke to me very well. I thought, oh man, there's a lot of stuff in there. Yes, it's about cooperation. And I have a formula of effective collaboration. I will talk to it soon. But that formula speaks to this definition. If you really want to collaborate, you have to get out of your own skin. It's something that you have to be convinced of, that it adds to your enrichment, and at the end of the day, to the goals of this company, or this organization, or whatever you have you, or the client, or the customer, or the patient, or the school. Because the enemy which is in there is important to understand, and the willingness is very important to understand, because that's what my formula is talking about. The formula of effective collaboration is S plus C plus V. I think you can remind that tonight, or remember that tonight, can you? C plus S, S plus C plus V. It's not difficult, 3 letters. More easy than any mathematics we got in primary school. However, what is S and what is C and what is V? S is talking about the set point in the brain, in your mind. If the set point of your brain or your mind is collaboration is actually not helping me, it's only disturbing me, it costs more time, people don't understand me, we have all kinds of objections against collaboration. Takes longer, costs more, frustration, all kind of stuff in you that actually prevents you from thinking positively about collaboration. Only when you start to reflect on your own ego and you're convinced of the fact, I am not God, I don't know everything, I don't know anything actually, but with the 2 of us, the 3 of us, the 4 of us, we know far more. When you take that set point in your brain, you start to see it as the natural way to perform the best. Why is this network of things you saw this morning, Stephen was showing you, the hierarchical structure and the network structure. That network structure is the structure, or if it's not already existing, you should tomorrow start in your organization. Forget about the hierarchy. It doesn't feed collaboration. It doesn't influence the set point in the brain in the right way. The set point in the brain, if it's not more than 50%, it's at least 40% adding to effective collaboration. The C, yes, I need to have the conditions to collaborate. But if you're a bit creative and you have the right set point in mind, you will create those conditions. And that's what Dave probably is going to talk about, is also you make it work. You make technology work because you want to make it work. And it's not seen as imposed on me from the IT department who says, you have it all, yeah, IT department, you have it all, it's all there. Yeah, but I can't do anything with it. I don't know how it works, and I'm not helped, and I'm helpless, and I'm starting to cry, and I have to do my work now. So, individually. It's not working. Because it has nothing to do with the IT department, guys. It has to do with your leadership and yourself to internalize the benefits of this. At home, we have it already a long time. We talk a bit about the 4 generations to be in the workplace. Well, I see on many occasions, sitting in lounges of airports, grandmas and granddads talking with video and audio on a device with their grandchildren. So let's not talk about that it's hard to do. It's just the time and energy we're not willing to spend on it. Last but not least, what was the willingly in the definition? Yes, it must be a voluntary choice to collaborate. How many of you go to meetings because they are invited and show up, not knowing what to get out of it or what to bring to it? It's the wrong thing. Don't go. Speak up, make clear that you have a contribution, maybe for only 5 minutes, and you leave that meeting. Or drive the meeting. Drive it. Be present. Do what you think has to be done. But don't sit in there, because it will frustrate you. And it doesn't add to the effectiveness of collaboration. Okay. Knowing this, knowing that it is important to get there, now the Holy Grail of Skype for Business. We saw this morning some numbers about technology in a positive way. There is an index, a Lisbon Index, for the ones who are very interested in how their workplace and the effectiveness of their workplace performs. Look it up. The Lisbon Index is a benchmarking tool where you get precisely a nice picture how your workplace performs versus the benchmark. But it also talks about technology. And you won't be surprised by seeing these kind of numbers. Yes, we give all kind of stuff to people. And imagine these people who answer this question have said that it's important for them. So it's not just a nice question to everybody. The question is for the people who are interested in it. How important is computing equipment for you? Very important. That's also number one. Number two is how satisfied are you with it? And this is just talking about simple stuff like a desktop and a keyboard. Maybe not even about all mobile devices. But even there you see that 1/3 more or less is on average not happy. You can put any technology in place, but if you're not happy in this one, you won't score. The second one, this is computing equipment. And see at the bottom, by the way, because this is out of 800 organizations. You have a top 15 and a bottom 15. The bottom 15 is a disaster. Yeah? And still leadership says, my people are the most important asset. Yeah? Keep that in mind. How serious are we? If you want to be connected, like we heard this morning, the stories about connectivity, etc., well, how does that in-company connectivity work? And how satisfied are we with that one? And if you are not that satisfied with it, yeah, almost also 1/3, how can we then perform on remote? How can I get from outside in? If I can't even from inside go in, how can I go from outside in? There is a huge chance and opportunity for the business in technology to get this right. And last but not least, it won't surprise you, here we are with the audiovisuals. Yes, this is the boardroom where you maybe, I don't know who was in the forum one, Nick said, well, maybe if the boardroom is not using that room, maybe I can sneeze in and use the audiovisual stuff, being either audio conference or video conference. Well, when you're in, you're not lucky because you don't know how to get it to work. Yeah? And there's nobody around for you to help you. The boardroom people will be helped, but you won't be. So you are immediately frustrated and forget about it. And why don't we get it right? In my opinion, it is taking ourselves serious and leadership taking you serious. And this is the biggest challenge for the upcoming decades. If we want to really benefit from technology that enables you to work anytime, anywhere, if the conservativeness in the boardroom and in the leadership is not being broken by you, yourself, helped by us if you need us, then we can invent lots of nice things, but they don't perform in the way they are meant to perform. This was my introduction on activity-based working. If you have any question now about activity-based working, you can ask it now before we go to a video of David's organization, being the Cardinia Council north of Melbourne, having developed and implemented a activity-based workplace and way of working, and he will talk to that one after the video. But I give you 2 minutes for the most burning question.
I've got one, which is, it seems to me that in activity-based working, you need to spend a fair bit of your time working on your single task, which is you and you alone.
Yeah.
Where's the split between that and collaboration?
Yeah, good point.
Because you hear about the Gen Ys and everyone spends all their time collaborating.
Yeah.
You're not actually working.
Yeah.
In one sense when you do it.
Okay. The question is, where sits the individual part of the task versus the collaborative part of the task? If you do the analysis, which we do around the activities, it's more or less 2/3 of the task is individual, processed, or focused work. Yeah? 2/3 of the task is. 1/3 isn't. That 2/3 of the task, how great would it be that you could give somebody freedom of choice to do that task wherever he thinks he can do that task at best. Either provided by acoustic. There was somebody I think you asked this morning the question about the open plan. These kind of plans are not open plan offices. They are all different, because if 2/3 of the task is individual, you have to find out how much of that individual work is work that I don't want to be disturbed. I don't want to hear anybody. I don't want to maybe not even see or be seen by people. Make the right work point setting, little boxes, whatever you design for that, that suits that purpose, because that's a big part of our work. And you should really, it's a good point, because I can't stress it enough. Activity-based work is a philosophy. What's the number of activities, the amount of activities we want to perform, and that's what we have to provide for. And not the mono desks like in an open plan and everybody's the same, and maybe it's hot desking, which is even worse, because then I get stressed by do I get a place anyhow? So to make that clear, it should match the activities, and preferably the future activities an organization is convinced of they should perform to come to their outcomes. Yeah? Okay, we go to a video. Yeah?
I'd really like to add another one to that.
Yeah.
Then what happens about the interruption?
Which interruption?
When you are, which is what I've just done to you, which is when you are there doing your quiet work,
Yeah.
and someone wants to speak to you.
Ah, fantastic. Yeah. So what do you do with the interruption? Well, maybe somebody has a good idea. What do you do with the interruption? Pardon?
Tell him to go away.
Tell him go away. Yeah, precisely. Tell him to go away. But this is the whole. I talked about the organizational development. This is the development of everybody. Listen, guys, I have a task to do. This is from 10 till 12 or whatever it is. I want to focus and I don't want to be disturbed. I put off my phone, I put off my email, and yes, it's clear to me if I'm in this area or in that space, I don't want to be disturbed. And that's what I have to start to understand with each other. In this reactive world we are working in, it's a very tough challenge to make it happen, but it's so effective when you do it and when you're able and mature enough to do so. So when Peter Marr wrote a book in the end of the day that they made their journey, the two things. One statement of him was, this is a concept and a philosophy for a mature organization. That was number one. The number two statement was the title of the book. It's not about the building, which makes your statement. It's about how we interact with each other and how we respect that. Okay. I can have half a question because David is popping. Yeah, sorry.
Well, if the average is 2/3 personal work and 1/3 collaborative work,
Yeah.
and you've got 3 in the team, then you'd have to make an appointment to collaborate.
Yeah. You have to organize your work. You have to organize the people.
I thought that's not what collaboration was about. It's about everywhere, all the time, always on, always available, always free.
It's your definition.
Free on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Today's Monday.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, you know.
Yeah. But that's your definition. I think you have to think far more thoughtful about collaboration instead of hop-snap reactive doing. That's part of it, but that's not the overall and overarching answer to it. I want to show you the video because then you get maybe some more answers. And after the video, David will talk to you about their experience.
It's a bold move.
It's no mean feat.
It's a cultural change.
Well, we have a very strong philosophy of business improvement at Cardinia, and that journey is all driven through technology. Cardinia Shire Council is one of the 7 growth corridors of Melbourne, with 4 to 6 families coming in a day. There's continual pressure on our service delivery.
We looked at activity-based working as a platform to really make the organisation more agile, being able to really respond a lot quicker to customer expectations.
We want to achieve better collaboration, better teamwork, improve our decision making, better service delivery, and that's already starting to be generated through this new way of working.
The technology is obviously really critical in creating a mobile environment for our staff to work in.
Microsoft Link, an end-to-end solution, was really what suited our corporate direction. By moving to the Link phone system, we're actually able to completely mobilise our workforce.
In the first couple of days, we actually saw people doing video conferencing, which is something they've never been able to do before.
Skype for Business and the next iteration of Link is actually really, really exciting. We just see so much more seamless opportunities for them.
We've reduced our paper use by about 70%, so we'll reduce our energy usage.
We've also reduced staff turnover from about 13 to 7% in the time frame, which is quite remarkable.
Yeah, the cost savings that we have made and will continue to make will either reduce our rates or be put into capital works. So there's a real benefit for the community.
It's a happier, healthier work environment, getting great people to work here, great people to stay working here, and be able to be much more responsive to our customers.
The future looks bright. If this is the way the world goes, then that's a good thing.
We're on this continued journey of excellence. You have to have belief in what you're doing as a Chief Executive Officer, and I've never doubted that this was the way of the future.
Oh, I had to click the button. I've never seen myself on such a big screen before, so I'm a bit of shock at the moment, so just bear with me. Thanks to Gijs and thanks for Generation E for inviting me up from Melbourne today to chat about Cardinia's journey to an activity-based workplace. So our journey actually began in 2012. We were going down the path of building a traditional office space, and that building was actually physically being built. At the same time, for about 2 or 3 years, the CEO who you saw in the video, Gary McQuillan, he'd been investing in the organisation. He'd been doing a lot of staff development and promoting people generally as leaders, trying to bring people on a journey and change the culture within the organisation. I suppose on the back of that, the senior management team started to think about the future of work. And were we doing the right thing with building a traditional office space? Was there an opportunity that we were potentially missing by just doing the same old? Subsequently, I suppose they did a bit of travelling around. They came up to Sydney. I think they might have visited the Macquarie offices. They visited a few offices. And they came back from those trips and they sort of said, look, we think there's a real possibility here. We think that activity-based working can potentially be an option for us. So our aspirations with our building move were to, and I suppose this presentation talked about 4 generations. So I suppose local government, there's a lot of people who work there, young people, old people, and it can be perceived as a very staid environment, a very fixed environment. On the back of that, the aspirations that we wanted to achieve were that we wanted to, I suppose, change the traditional management paradigm, so get away from that hierarchical structure. We wanted to improve collaboration. We wanted to improve communication. We wanted to break down silos significantly. There were moments where we were finding that 4 different business units would be doing the same thing in isolation, not realising that other people were doing that. So, that's just poor productivity. We wanted to improve productivity. We wanted to become, and particularly down in Cardinia, we're sort of on the outskirts of Melbourne, so we wanted to become an employee of choice. So we wanted people to come to us and work with us. And I suppose what they saw was potentially that activity-based working would facilitate those things. It was potentially a way to address some of those things that they wanted to achieve. So the possibility around that, what did that actually mean? And I suppose when we started to investigate activity-based working a bit further, and Gijs has spoken about, I suppose, the cultural journey a little bit, and I'm going to speak a lot about the cultural journey as well. And this is a technology forum, so we're here to speak about Skype for Business and touch on Link 2013, and apparently I'm allowed to say that without being fined because we implemented Link 2013, not Skype for Business, but I'll talk about Skype for Business as well. So the possibilities around that and one of the significant ways that you need to achieve that is through mobility. Gijs and I were speaking earlier today and we were talking about, the future of work. And literally, I don't know, for me, it is literally natural that the world is going to go down the path of you can work from anywhere. It makes no sense to have these fixed locations that we currently have. And the key to that aspirations, and Gijs touched on it as well, is the bravery of the people in leadership positions, because ultimately what it really does is it challenges the 30 years that those people have been in the workforce. So they need to be brave, they need to release the shackles, and they need to be willing to allow this to occur. So around that mobility, by introducing that mobility, you essentially, I suppose, free up that work from anywhere opportunity. Integrated or closely related to that mobility is paper independence, so that you can't achieve mobility if you're really, really reliant on paper. And Cardinia, for example, with their planning departments, so people are probably in the room have dealt with planning departments over time. A lot of the hold up is associated with paper and shuffling of paper and process and stuff like that. If you look at those environments, and if you're not able to move away from paper and introduce mobility, then you struggle to achieve activity-based working, you struggle to achieve mobility. So we were actually on a little bit of a journey in terms of an IT strategy. We were introducing a whole bunch of technologies. Interestingly enough, or maybe not so interestingly enough, those technologies basically are required for an activity-based workplace anyway. So we were doing an OS refresh, we were doing follow me printing, we were doing a document management system upgrade, we were looking at an intranet upgrade, and we were looking very closely at SharePoint. The purpose behind all of those things was all about I suppose, communication, consolidation and integration. What we found with activity-based working and laying over the top the mobility layer, it just enhanced that strategy and it just led it down a natural path. The last piece that came with that strategy, I suppose, was the telephone system and how do you make a telephone system mobile. When we investigated that area, we basically had two options. We had the Microsoft stack or we had the Cisco stack. When we looked at what we were trying to achieve, it was an absolute no-brainer to go with Link 2013. So what was the reality? I suppose what became very, very clear, and Gijs has already touched on this, as I said before, what became very, very clear very, very early on is this wasn't a technology project. This was literally a cultural change program. And that became clear from our conversations really early on with Valtune. So what we initially planned to do when we first were looking at this is we were going to move into our new building and we were going to introduce all these new technologies. And people were going to be so excited because they'd have all these new toys and it was going to be fantastic. And Valtune turned around to us and said, if you do that, you are guaranteed to fail. So I suppose the observation was that people were going to be so overwhelmed with the change to their workplace practices that the last thing they needed to worry about was new technologies. So on the back of that sage advice, we started to introduce all of these new technologies in steps before we got to the new building, to the point that once we got to the new building, we only had two new technologies that we were introducing. One was our audio-visual equipment and one was Link 2013. So we introduced those on launch day at the new building. So how did it all actually go? So we moved into the new building in November last year. We've been there for quite a while now. As per the video, you saw some statistics that have occurred along the journey. We've reduced printing by 70%. Our document management system utilisation has increased by 200%. Our staff leaving the organisation, I think Di said that we'd gone from 13 to 7%, so our retention has increased. Since we've moved into the new building, we've continued to survey staff to ensure or see how everyone is tracking. Basically, staff and leaders within the organisation are completely, well, not completely satisfied, but they believe that 80% of them believe that there's been a productivity increase in what we do. 70% absolutely believe that we're collaborating more effectively, and 93% of the organisation feel more connected and more cohesive as an organisation after the move. And interestingly enough, a lot of them put that down to the technology that they're used to and that they now have access to. And one of those significant items of technology is literally Link. So what do we use Link 2013 for? Today I've sat around and I've watched a few presentations, and a lot of people have been talking about video conferencing. Interesting, and look, we do video conference, but it's not high on our list of Link functions that are really adding value to the organisation. Absolutely, chat, so the chat functionality within Link, that's become the default communication tool when people aren't talking to each other. So there's no more emails, not necessarily calling each other, just a quick chat, hey, what are you up to? We are now soft phones, so we have an Ultrabook. Everyone in the organisation has an Ultrabook, and everyone has a Plantronics wireless DECT headset. So that is how we mobilise ourselves and we move around the organisation. People are starting to use the Link client on their mobile phones. We did discuss them being our primary phones at one point, but we moved away from that. Personally, I love the fact that I can literally take my Ultrabook, go home with my DECT headset and sit down at my desk, and I am completely connected to the organisation. So I don't even need to be there. I can work from home seamlessly if I want to. I also like, personally, once again, another one of my favourites associated with Link is I can literally be talking to someone on the phone, or I can be chat messaging with someone via Link, and I can just pick up someone else from the contact list. I can drag and drop them into that conversation, and they're basically on board. I can get the answers to the questions that I want straight away. We also use presence significantly. So with an activity-based working, one of the perceptions is that how am I going to find people? We use presence a lot so that we can find people's availability. And we also use Link to, so this is a manual process, but we pop in where our location is so that people have visibility on our location. So I suppose how are things going? Obviously they're going great. As I said, staff are pretty satisfied. Our surveys show that things are going pretty well. Valtune actually came out for the first week that we moved in. And they actually said that they'd never seen a transition to an activity-based workplace that went so smoothly. The observation around that for me is, gee, there was a bunch of hard work that went in the background, and for a long time we were on a long journey. And so, yeah, it went well, but that was because I suppose we put a lot of effort into it. The other thing was that we went out and we listened to what people had done, and we gained from their experiences. And I suppose that's why this is really important. So what actually went wrong? Because things did go wrong. We had to make some really hard decisions. That was probably a part of the hard work that went forward. So deciding on a workstation was a massive decision for us. Our observations, as I said before, when we investigated what other people had done, our observations were that where people had conceded and had multiple different workstations and stuff like that, everything had fallen apart very quickly. So we literally went with a single workstation solution for the organisation. There was a fair bit of give out on that because it wasn't a dual monitor solution. We had one large 24-inch monitor, and we have a laptop stand so that people can get their second monitor functionality going with that. The second hard decision, a really hard decision that we had, was what headset were we going to go with to facilitate our mobility. And we did a lot of research into this, and we finally concluded that we were going to go with the Plantronics DECT wireless headset. It was, as I said before, we didn't actually know what that was going to look like until we moved in, because that was one of the technologies that was being released once we'd moved. And so I was really concerned about the uptake of that, what people were going to do. One of my senior staff went over to America on a holiday about a month before we moved. And he went to Times Square. There was an activity-based workplace there, and he dropped in to say hello to them. They said he could come in and have a chat. And they were very effusive about how great it had been. It's been a fantastic journey for them, and activity-based working is great. But gee, we got the headset wrong. And he said that they'd been on this 6-month journey because they'd got the headset wrong to find out what the best headset was. And they had concluded that the best headset was the Plantronics DECT wireless headset. So when Ryan brought that information back about a month before we moved, I was very, very relieved. Big sigh came out of me. Literally what really did go wrong, so I suppose I've been a little bit, I've been talking the praises of the DECT headset. One of the things that categorically did go wrong was the decked headset. So the customer service officers, interestingly enough, they were the only people in the organisation who worked with headsets previously. They had a wired headset. When we gave them a wireless headset, the functionality was perhaps a bridge a little bit too far. So they couldn't come across it. They had a lot of trouble with the batteries. And in the first week, we actually had to go back to the wired headsets for them. What we've subsequently done is we've left them with the decked headset, and now we're starting to see them pick up those headsets again and get used to using them again. What else happened? Our primary network is Wi-Fi, so that allows our seamless mobility. We walk around the organisation connected to the Wi-Fi network. We had a lot of troubles with our switching, so we've just been through about a month ago, we just replaced 17 switches. Basically, the switches that we had delivered weren't fit for purpose, so if you are going down a Wi-Fi networking path, make sure you get your networking correct. And then probably the last highlight that I would like to make is perception of location. So we've had a lot of issues around perception of location, but this actually leads into a really important point that Gijs was talking about often, and that is a lot of things are behavioural as opposed to technology issues. We've found through the journey where people are giving out about technology, 90% of the time it's not really the technology that's the problem, it's the behaviour. So people were saying, how am I ever going to be, my time's run up apparently. I'm nearly finished, so give me maybe a few more minutes. How am I going to find people? For me, it's just a bit of a weird question. I mean, in the old building, you knew where people sat, but if you stood up and go, I'm going to go see John, and you get there and John's not there, what do? Well, you go back to your desk and you sit down again. You've just wasted 5 minutes' time. What's wrong with bang, bang, hey, John, are you there? He doesn't respond, and so you just keep working. He does respond. You go, oh, can I see you? And I'll come around and see you. So it's a bit of a misnomer. That being said, it was very, very real for people. And on top of that, I suppose we've discovered some things about Link through that process. So with Link itself, if we shut our laptop lids, then our presence disappears. That's not when we're docked into the stations, but when we're moving around the building. So that's been a little bit of a barrier. But it's a behavioural thing. People are also sticking themselves always, like if they stick themselves in Do Not Disturb when they don't need to be in Do Not Disturbed, or they don't start up their Link, and it is a barrier for the other organisation. We need to work together. So I suppose those have been the real barriers that we've come across. So what does the future hold? We're very, very clear that this is a journey and that we haven't finished that journey. We realise that it could flip back the other way very, very easily. There are always people who are uncomfortable, and we've got to continue to work with them and try to see what their needs are and make sure that they're coming on the journey. We've moved to a space now which I suppose promotes innovation and promotes ideas, and in that regard we are really, really excited about the possibilities that we're seeing with Skype for Business. So I suppose some of those options that we're already seeing is we're looking at a pilot at the moment with our maternal child health nurses where they're video conferencing with mums at home. And with Link 2013, there is a slight barrier there. It's not a seamless experience. There is a little bit of work that the mums have to do, and so it's a little bit difficult. I think there was a presentation in there this morning that spoke about video conferencing and when it's seamless, people will just do it. And that's what I'm seeing with Skype for Business. I'm seeing that literally it is going to be far more seamless, and it will be really easy for those mums at home to do that. And I suppose the other big takeaway that I've taken thus far from Skype for Business is potentially the interpretation services. Sounds a little bit hokey, but if it really, really works from a local government perspective and our multicultural communities, it will be huge. Anyway, that's pretty much me. I would be very open to questions, but I don't know that we've got any time. So, no worries. Thank you, everyone.